What's going on, brothers? Matt Deegs here with another video. Appreciate you guys for dropping by. And in this video, we're going to be breaking down and going over how to beat week 22 hard stratagem. All right. This one is not easy, but it's not tough. All right. It's somewhere in the middle. It's definitely doable within a few tries if you're using the right class, the right perks, and the right weapons. All right, guys. So we're going to be going everything from the battlefield conditions to the best perks, weapons, classes, and loadouts to use. All right, guys. With that being said, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let's get into it. All right, guys, so we are on Inferno this week for the hard stratagem. And in terms of the battlefield conditions, we have a few here. We got 4. So the first one is buffed enemies. So enemies have increased health and damage. Then we have unshaken. So you do not lose control upon taking heavy hits, and you cannot be knocked back. Then we have press the attack. This one, honestly, is probably the toughest one out of the bunch. So not performing finishers for 20 seconds will start draining your health down to 30%. But finishers restore your health. So it's kind of like, you know, half good, half bad. Yes, you're going to be draining your health, but performing finishers, performing executions will restore that health. The restoration amount depends on what you're killing. So Minoris will get you, you know, maybe a little bit, 5%. Majoris will get you maybe 20, and then Extremis or higher will get you almost your full bar back. Okay, I don't have exact numbers because they don't give you that, but just for, you know, your knowledge, there is differences between the enemies you kill. And then lastly, guys, we have close in. So range damage is greatly reduced, but melee damage is increased. So let's go over each battlefield condition one by one. I'm going to talk a little bit about how they work. So buffed enemies. So enemies have increased health and damage. So that's pretty straightforward. You're going to be facing Tyranids, so just keep that in mind. Not only will the Minoris have more health and damage, so make sure you're not getting overwhelmed with Minoris because they can overwhelm you quite easily. So just keep, you know, your peripheries well maintained and open. You don't want to be overwhelmed by Minoris. Majoris, you feel their hits a lot harder. You know, one of those whip swings will take off pretty much 90% of your health if you have no armor remaining. So just keep that in mind. And guys, Extremis and Terminus are extremely deadly in this specific stratagem. So please keep in mind, be very careful. Make sure you hit those blocks, those perfect parries perfectly, because any big mistake, any even small mistake, even with Minoris, will take off a big chunk of your health. Then we have Unshaken, so you do not lose control upon taking heavy hits, and you cannot be knocked back. So this is where I recommend, if you use a class or you're running a class that has a specific perk that is like Unshaken, because there's a bunch of perks that for each class that have, you know, some sort of do not lose control upon taking heavy hits, or you cannot be knocked back, right? So I would say take that off so that you have room for another perk that might benefit you a little more, because there's no point in having a perk on that does the exact same thing you're going to be getting for free in the battlefield condition. All right. Then we have press the attack. So not performing a finisher for 20 seconds will start draining your health. So let's just talk about the first part first. So you're going to have to be performing finishers time and time again. Aim to hit those Minoris finishers, because there are plenty Minoris. Throw a few melee swings and they go into execution animation mode, and you're able just to click that button, get the animation in, and get the execution in, and then boom, you're good for another 20 seconds. If you're constantly aiming for Extremis or Majoris, they're going to be harder to find. You know, obviously they're going to be plentiful, but not as plentiful as Minoris, right? So again, the press the attack battlefield condition still applies to Minoris, especially the first part. As for the second part, so again, it doesn't get it down to below 30%, but finishers restore health. So like I said earlier, guys, you get restoration of health for every single enemy kill, from lowest to highest. It just depends on, your health depends on what you're killing. So for example, Majoris is going to give you, for just, you know, for numbers' sake, I don't know the exact numbers, but let's say 20% back, and then Extremis will give you 40% back or 50, and then Terminus will fill your whole bar, right? And Minoris will give you a little bit, maybe 5-10%. Again, these are just random numbers, but there are differences in terms of what you're killing and how much restoration you get back. So again, the smaller the enemy, the less you get back. The bigger the enemy, the more you get back. So with press the attack, this is where I would recommend, and we're going to go into the perks in a second, but this is where I recommend, if you're running unmatched zeal or adrenaline rush on Vanguard, which I usually run almost all the time, this is where I would honestly recommend take it off. Take that perk off and put on another perk, which we'll get into in a second. But don't waste that type of perk, because you're going to be getting execution health restoration from press the attack battlefield condition. So there's really no point in running unmatched zeal or adrenaline rush when you already have pretty much a free unmatched zeal, right? So if you're running Vanguard, that's one perk I would say take off, but we're going to get into the perks in a second, guys. And then we have close in. So range damage is greatly reduced, but melee damage is increased. So right off the bat, guys, you probably don't want to be running sniper. You probably don't want to be running heavy. Again, you still could win with those two. I was actually able to, so my team was a Vanguard. I was a Vanguard. And I believe we had a Bulwark and an Assault on the team. And we were able to get it done quite easily. Prior to that, there was a Sniper on the team. I was playing with a Heavy, and it didn't happen those runs. So definitely there is something to aiming for more melee-focused classes. So Tactical, Assault, Vanguard, Bulwark. Again, just a recommendation, but we'll go into that in a second. Also, guys, I was streaming when we finished this. We actually completed it and got the win. So, guys, if you haven't come to one of my streams, I'm always playing with viewers. All you got to do is be a subscriber to the channel. It's completely free, supports the channel. I won't even check. So it's just, out of merit, right? It's just out of trust. But, yeah, so if you ever want to hop in and join the stream, I'll put up the code and you can hop in if there's room, all right? But, guys, let's get into the actual class perks and weapons. Now, as I mentioned, I was running the Vanguard, and in terms of what I was running, let's go over the perks quickly. So this is not what I was running, so let's switch a few things up here. Now, everything else I was running, so I was running Melee Mastery, I was running Close Combat Focus, I was running Consecutive Execution. Now, this is where I change things up. I usually run Unmatched Zeal, so you get 30% health back for any Extremis or Terminus level enemy kill. However, there's really no point for that because you're going to get health regeneration from the battlefield condition. So I opted to save this perk and actually went for Melee Champion, bolstering melee damage even further. So all squad members deal 15% more melee damage. Everything else in the gear columns stayed the same. And then for the last signature perk, I usually run Adrenaline Rush. I'm a very much a health regeneration perk focused individual, and I love the health regeneration of a Vanguard. However, again, you're going to be getting it for free with the battlefield condition, so I opted for Emperor's Blessing, which is also a fantastic perk. So taking lethal damage restores all armor instead of incapacitating you, and the cooldown's 120 seconds. So it gives you a free second chance at life. So this is a really good perk. So if you're running Vanguard, this is the perk tree setup I would recommend for this week's stratagem. But if you're running other classes, let's go into each one. So like I said, guys, I would not recommend Sniper. I would not recommend Heavy. They're just not melee focused, and you're going to be at a disadvantage. Could it still be done? Yes, but you're going to be at a disadvantage, in my opinion. So if you're not going to run Vanguard, which is my favorite, again, everyone has their favorite, I would say go with either Bulwark, Assault, or Tactical. Any of them can work. The only reason I'm going to say Bulwark would be the better of the three between Tactical, Assault, and Bulwark is just because it has perks like Invigorate and Icon. Yes, you're going to be getting health back with, executions and finishers, but having Invigorate and Icon will help you. Let's say your health gets low and, there's really no execution available and you want to get your health back up, you got a med kit, or you have a Minoris lined up, you pop the banner down, you just execute a little Minoris, and boom, you got full health back. So it really does come in handy. This could be swapped out if you wanted to play the same kind of style as the Vanguard, where you swap out the healing perks for more damage perks. And you can go for this one right here, guys, Concussive Force, which would be really good. But otherwise, Invigorate and Icon can't go wrong with. Either or will work. But the reason I like the Bulwark as well is because you have perks that regenerate armor. So focus restoration. So every 30 seconds, all squad members automatically restore 1 armor segment. So remember, your battlefield condition, yes, they're going to be taking health off you after 20 seconds of not performing an execution or finisher. However, if you have armor, it'll take that off first. So again, I would recommend putting focus restoration on, as well as armor reinforcement. So non-finisher gun strikes restore 1 armor segment. So these two in combination is gonna be really good, keeping your armor high, thus your health intact. One more thing with the Vanguard, there is a great prestige perk that I recommend. Just as I mentioned, prior to the Bulwark, you want to be keeping your armor high, thus your health high. So putting launch restoration on, so basically you get armor back every time you use your grapple launcher. It's honestly key to keep your armor intact and your health high. So I would pop that on as well if you haven't done so. Now, as for assault and tactical, they both work. In any other circumstance, I would say, if you're playing a tactical and assault, they're two very unforgiving classes. So what I mean by that is this: don't get me wrong, they're fantastic classes. I think assault is one of the funnest classes to play. However, if you look at the perk tree, there's no perk, maybe outside of this one right here, the focus, armor reinforcement, that allows you non-finisher gun strike restore 1 armor segment. There's no perk that has a healing capability. However, because of the battlefield condition this week, you really doesn't matter, because you're going to be able to perform finishers and get your health back. So I wouldn't really too much about that. However, if you're going to run assault, I would say put on armor reinforcement. This is the only perk I would say is a must for this, just because it keeps your armor high and it keeps your health intact, okay? Everything else, guys, you run what you feel best. This is my loadout. This is my perk tree that I enjoy the most with the assault. But again, everyone's different, so you do you. But I would say for the first core tree, putting on armor reinforcement is a must, just to keep that armor high, okay, and your health intact. As for tactical, it's a really unforgiving class. They don't really have any perks that offer, armor reinforcement or armor replenishment or health replenishment. So you're kind of alone out there. But it is what it is, because you have the battlefield condition that will get you health restoration back for every execution. So don't worry too much about that on this operation. It's fantastic for melee. It's fantastic for popping your Auspex scan and bolstering your melee damage even further. And if you're running with a Vanguard who put on the first team perk melee champion, you're going to get an even bigger bonus, guys. So there you have it, guys. Honestly, it's not a hard stratagem. It's not an easy stratagem. Again, if you're using the wrong class, you're using the wrong weapons, and you're focusing more on range damage, it's going to take quite a few shots to take down even a Majoris. So you're going to want to focus on more melee builds. Again, Bulwark, Vanguard, Assault, and Tactical. Or I would try to stay away from Sniper and Heavy for this stratagem, but again, you could probably get it done with those as well if you're solid at the class or you have a good team, all right? With that being said, guys, also keep in mind that try your best to find those armor bonuses, those armor boosts. Those will help, get your armor to the 4 plates, thus keeping you intact even further, keeping your armor high, keeping your health there and available, all right? So with that being said, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. Let me know down below how many times it took you to beat it. And if you didn't beat it yet, guys, if you see me streaming, hop in and I can probably run it with you guys and I can help you get it done, all right? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.